Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester. Today, and of course you are too, yes, you're watching content like this. That means you are in the process of molding your life into the direction that you choose and not just some stuff that was just thrown at you when you were coming up in the social environments that you happen to be a part of through birth, right? Once we come into this world, we have so many opportunities to change what we don't like, to add on the things that we do like, right? If they didn't come naturally in our environments, and then to continue to create this thing depending on what we have access to in our environment, and then creating more opportunities to expand, 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 and ascend, right? Nonetheless, what I'm talking about today is money, right? That's the title of the video. Let's talk money. The reason why money is so important to so many people is not because they're lusting after it and they think it's more important than family itself and it's more important to have money than any type of social connections. Well, we all know that's not true, right? There may be some people that actually believe that, but the reason why some of us often become consumed with thoughts of money, because like think about it in your head, how many times do you think about money throughout your day? If you start adding that up, it's probably going to be a lot for a lot of people, for most people. And it's not because we're all like money hungry and greedy. It's because it's the currency of life. It's the way that we bring new experiences, bring food and drink, water, materials we need, the roof over our heads. That is the thing that we use in order to create that other aspect to it, right? We happen to live in a very capitalistic society, so therefore we probably hear about money more often than people hear in a lot of other places around the world, even though it's still navigating and controlling large aspects of your life to a certain degree, right? Because we know we believe in manifesting magic. But when you say manifesting magic, most people's list consist of some type of financial abundance, right? And it should, because that is the way that we experience this world, this practical, pragmatic world that we live in, right? And even if it's not your money, because I always say I used to have things gifted to me, it's somebody else's abundance that you are tapping into to have an experience, right? Nonetheless. So most recently, it's a big one of my biggest milestones, right? Especially when it comes to stability, because I have a lot of a very bohemian mindset, and someone told me a vagabond was my spirit animal. It's one of those things is I don't sit in things very long that I don't like, right? I'm like, oh no, the world is too abundant for that. Let's just get rid of it, right? But there's something to be said for some level of stability when it comes to especially creating the life that you choose, right? Because I used to tell somebody I knew that they were always so quickly on to the next idea that the universe didn't have time to bless them. Like they were like, oh, she's over there. Let me go bless her over there. By the time the universe gets over there, she's already over here. So there's something to be said for stability, right? Most recently in my life, if I'm being very candid, I've been able to accumulate a five-figure months. That's what I call them, right? Because we hear a lot about six figures and seven figures, but some of us talking about that kind of conversation, we haven't even made it to five figures, right? Five-figure months, I mean. And so having five-figure months, of course, is going to put you in the six-figure years, right? But just in your everyday life, realizing the scope that you need to focus on first, right? So if you're into months now where you're doing four figures like most people do, right? Somewhere in a thousand, in the 9,000 and under, somewhere 9,999 and under. That's where most people are. That's like if you look at the national averages, right? You'll find that's where most people are landing below that that line. But when we're talking about abundance and freedom and expanding ourselves, it's so important that we're focusing on things that we can actually believe in, right? So for myself, I find it really hard to say, dear universe, bring me $1 million a month, because in my head, there's a deep part of me that doesn't believe that that is that easy. Even though I know it is, my wiring, my programming, and my subconscious will fight against it. But what is something very easy for me to believe right now is in five-figure months, right? Months where you're making $10,000 or more, right? And for a long time, that was like unheard of for me. But just most recently in my life, in the past few months, it's been extremely easy to accomplish, right? And so that's what I mean by breaking open your mind in one area where it has limitation and then allowing it to continue to keep breaking, right? Whenever I listen to any greats, any people that talk about this type of mindset, Lisa Nichols, she was saying how she couldn't go straight into having $1 million a year because at first she didn't even believe for $7,000 a month. That was her first challenge, right? So we have to go for what the areas where we believe more and then increase in that area, because the more you believe it, the more confident you are. And then the more easily you can focus in the positive mindset when that thing pops up as opposed to negative, right? Um, I have like 5 tips that I say definitely has impacted me to be able to create the level of stability to get out of the mindset of a lump sum and then spend it, a lump sum and then spend it. Because a lot of people have that lottery mindset. And I was kind of raised in that mindset. And while there's nothing wrong with when it happens, it's not a good way to depend on to live life in a long term manner, right? Um, it was very rewarding for me when it was my mindset all the time, but I can clearly see how adding some levels of stability to that can has improved it a great deal. So one of those things that I talk about constantly is consistent energy. Whether you have consistent energy towards a specific goal or a specific plan, but you should be in some ways in your life putting consistent energy towards something that you're trying to create. And when I say consistent, that means showing up for it on a daily basis, no matter what it is, right? If it's a business you're trying to start and maybe you're held up with some piece, you have some dependencies that haven't broken through quite yet, you can still take pen and a paper, something I do all the time, and write down some of the things you see for the business, like some of the ways you want to operate, some of the things that just keep pouring and pouring consistent energy into those things that you want to accomplish. And you'll see that the abundance starts to flow in overall from every direction. It's like you have to be this moving ball of positive energy for things to, and get the momentum going for things that are like it to be able to attract to it. So think about like, Sonic the Hedgehog. If you think about him, how he moves around and he turns into this spinning ball of, speed, that's kind of like how you are. And as you're going, the more momentum and the more speed and consistency you have, the easier it is to attract other things that match that level of momentum and consistency and speed. And that's where a lot of abundance is created, right? Because I always say money doesn't go to places where it is not going to be valued and used to the highest capacity, right? So that's why something I have even in my budget, I always put investing. Like I don't put like random things that I purchase as just like, oh, something I bought, cute clothes. I don't put that. I put investing in wardrobe, investing in, I make sure the mindset says that I'm investing as opposed to consuming, which is so important. Another thing that I focus on is tracking spending way more than I ever used to track spending. Um, this is a big deal. A lot of us have these cards and our debit cards, and they'll tell you where your money's going, but it's kind of just a pie chart. But just over the past 2 months, I've been heavily focused on tracking spending. So I won't lie to myself about what I'm actually spending on something. And when I say tracking spending, I'm not talking about ways for me to hold back or pull back from myself. I look at what I'm actually doing and what I'm content with what I'm doing and what are those habits. And if I see something needs to be reined in, then I can do that later. But in those normal habits, is this sustainable? Because I do like peace and ease when it comes to using money. I don't like to use money under duress and feel like everything that I'm buying is something I shouldn't be buying, right? I want to know, like, on my regular basis of week, when I'm not worried about money, when I'm not thinking negatively in any kind of way, and I move about, I buy lunch, I buy a piece of clothing or whatever that is. What are those natural habits? And then go from there to create a budget. Because anytime you're holding too many parts of yourself back to try to create this budget, it usually turns negative and then you jump up off of it. It's like a diet with too many restrictions, right? So see what your natural spending habits are and then track them and then create a budget based on that. And then when you're giving yourself that space, funny enough, it's easier to pull back on, okay, shopping too often. I might want to pull back on that. Okay, spending too much money eating out at lunch during the week. Those sort of things. You'll start to see it more clearly. Another thing is, I mentioned it earlier already, my mindset is always about investing and not consuming. So even though I can say I'm going out to consume a new outfit, I'm going to consume a dinner, a lunch date with somebody, I think about the deeper meaning behind why am I spending this money. And the deeper one too, when it comes to something like clothing, a blazer or some slacks, it's like dress for where you're going. So I always go into workplaces, environments, or to handle business, a Zoom meeting, dressed for the level of respect that I want to receive in the environment. So when I go to purchase this clothing, I always say it's an investment into the image that I'm choosing to portray in these environments, right? Because we have several images. I have like 5 different clothing images I can think of right now that I use in different spaces. And another thing is keeping cash on hand has been a really good one for me. Not always using a debit card, so I'll keep about $100 or $200 of cash in my purse, and that stops me from having all those tiny transactions, and I can just call it miscellaneous on the other end. And another thing is, my final thing is, I give pretty often. And that's something that you got to get in the habit of. Don't worry about where it's going when you give it away. Just say, I'm putting it in circulation. I'm putting myself out there as a good vessel to attract the money that I want to see in my life. So I'm making myself more available as a vehicle, a vessel for that money to pass through. And holding on tight to it like Scrooge McDuck doesn't do that. Circulating it into society, giving it to people, giving it to family members, whoever it is, but make sure you're circulating and giving that money away. I hope these tips and tricks help you on your money journey, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.